So I want to talk about legacies of love, peace and hope, how bioethics education can overcome hatred and divide. Confucius said, to love a thing means wanting it to live. So love is a starting point for a common philosophy. Welcome to the roundtable, Cross-Cultural Bioethics to Repair a Broken World, the first joint AUSN Tohoku University Bioethics Roundtable. And as Professor Tsushi Asai has introduced, we hope to continue these traditions that's occurred before. We had 9 Tsukuba Bioethics Roundtables, and that's where Tsushi Asai and I first met in Tsukuba. And then we had 5 Bangkok Bioethics Roundtables and 12 Kumamoto Bioethics Roundtables since 2002, organized with the Bioethics Institute. So we're very pleased to be in Sendai. Bioethics, new technology, has been a catalyst for re-examination of medical ethics and social ethics and for international dialogue on ethical principles. We have fields such as medical ethics, dental ethics, environmental ethics, public health ethics, applied ethics, ethics of biotechnology. And we're so pleased we've got lots of people back. So, welcome. So, we've just started, which is good. So the theme of today is our world broken? So the theme was decided in light of the Christchurch terror attack on the 15th of March 2019. So when Tsushi Asai and I were talking about the title for the first Sendai Bioethics Roundtable, we thought cross-cultural bioethics in a broken world would be very fitting because of this concern. So what is science of a broken world? There are many aspects. Violence, terrorism, corruption, environmental destruction, starvation, poverty. Many topics have been addressed by the Millennium Development Goals, MDGs, and the from 2000 to year 2015, and then from 2016 to 2030 we have the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and then from 2031 we'll have yet another set of goals, no doubt, because the world continues to try to get together to deal with these issues. You may be interested, if you wish to contribute your paper to a volume. This is the website of the Legacies of Love, Peace and Hope, how education can overcome hatred and divide. So it says on the website, we're all shocked and heartbroken by the terrorist attacks against worshippers in mosques in our hometown, Christchurch, New Zealand. It's a hometown of Eubios Ethics Institute. We invite contributions for a new book with Legacies of Love, Peace and Hope, how education can overcome hatred and divide. The number of contributors will equal the death toll of the hateful, senseless massacre that occurred on 15th of March 2019. This is an counter to the decades of work for intercultural dialogue all around the world and reflection on a good life to all, the very reasons we were founded to achieve. And if you're interested to come to the launch conference in Christchurch, we held from 25th to 29th of September this year. And you can find some more videos and other projects on that website. So If you're interested to contribute your paper from this meeting or others, I need it by the end of August. The current list, just to give you, is quite a variety. Legacies of Love from Christchurch. I explore my growing up in my hometown in Aotearoa, Christchurch. Farida Ahmed is actually writing a book based on the massacre. The title of the book is Why I Forgave the Person Who Killed My Wife. His wife was killed in the mosque. Anwar Nasim from Pakistan, The Role for Individuals. He is the former second president of the Pakistan Academy of Sciences. Manyao is on Skype now. Cave Doug, Lies, Hints and Prevention. Napsu is from Australia. Pakistani, Christchurch Massacre, Watershed Lost. Alay Kasai from Jordan, Communication in the Face of Terrorism. Lara from Spain, Education Against Hate and Racism for African Americans. So quite a variety. Ravi Chandramurthy from Malaysia, Value-Based Education. Alex Waller from Thailand and the UK, who especially developed a secondary school project in response to the Christchurch Massacre, and the children from the school sent letters and discussed. Gregor Waldron on ability expectation, because people with different abilities are subject to discrimination in different ways. Rogilu Bayed is also on the Skype, democratic and moral deficit of the Philippine education system. Isa from Jordan, higher education can overcome hatred in Jordan, divide. Lana from Iraq, the lost generation, about the ethics of failure to educate refugees. Ayub from Jordan, nurturing the ethics of love and peace. Irina from Australia, love of nature, dialogue building. Leonard, the ethics of the US invasion of Iraq during World War II. Kitan from India, volunteerism, with the Istanbul communique, which was from the Istanbul meeting we held on April this year. We had a communique on facing disasters, looking beyond disasters, both man-made and human. John Lanou, continues to global peace and harmony. Sultan Sharif, who lived in Libya and India, forgiveness is the extreme form of love and hate. Then we have letters from the students in St. Stephen's School in Thailand, and a video specially produced from students from Cambridge High School in Jordan, which you can watch on YouTube, the Conference of the Birds. They produced it as part of their International Baccalaureate graduation project as a drama. Another theme we're talking about is cross-cultural bioethics. Human beings need to love and respect all others and respect different cultures. In the Eubios Declaration on International Bioethics, which some of the people in this meeting may remember from Bioethics Roundtable in Tsukuba, bioethics is an interdisciplinary field that needs to be nourished by debate among all disciplines and people, not limited to any academic specialty or professionals. And further on in that declaration, what is cross-cultural bioethics? So Article 8, international cross-cultural bioethics should be developed, including studies and discussions which respect individual cultures as long as they do not conflict with fundamental human rights, as outlined in the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. Nations and members of every society should be honestly reflect on the bioethical lessons of the past. Honest reflection on bioethical lessons of the past should be encouraged together with efforts to promote reconciliation on all levels. 9. Research on the thinking and reasoning of all people should be more emphasized in order to understand the diversity of people's thinking. This is necessary for determining the degree of universality that is possible and should be used to complement other research approaches in bioethics. There is no inherent reason to believe a priori that the views of one person are intrinsically more valuable than the views of another, based on gender, age, educational background, physical, mental, or psychological conditions or life experience. And 10, such ethical understanding is necessary to develop international cross-cultural bioethics. No one culture should claim to be the dominant source of a concept of bioethics. So in that spirit, developed through conferences, in fact the first roundtable was 1992. Since then, for 27 years we've had roundtables. So long time, and getting younger every year. So bioethics is the love of life, loving good, self-love, love of others, love. It's a relational-based bioethics. We're trying to balance ideals of doing good or beneficence against not doing harm, non-maleficence, individual autonomy, or justice for all. There is a long heritage seen in biology, medicine, society, and religion. How do we bring all these peoples together? Started in local communities that extended in colonization and global wars. So we can still ask these questions, what future do we want? In fact, the kids in this photograph are now in their 20s, and maybe it'd be interesting to ask them, how do they think? Was their vision the same now as it was a few years before? Can you think back 27 years? No, because some of you are younger than that. But if you could, some of us are, can we imagine what it was like? What was our vision of the future?
We were known to him for the past 30 years.
That's right. So I know, and I
used to come to Chennai for the past 27 years.
Since 1992, is my first visit to Chennai. And the first Bioethics Roundtable in Scribble was 1992. And we actually have some videos from that time, so I can actually attest to people saying the same things as they were. They repeat the same slides, the same comments. You can see. So, for those who are new to bioethics, or some of you first time to come to a bioethics conference, there are different ways to view bioethics. One, descriptive bioethics is the way people view life, their moral interactions and responsibilities with living organisms in their life. So I can describe the bioethics. The pursuit of a good life is a goal that all persons can hope for. A good life should be understood in a holistic sense and is clearly more than just a contented life, free of want and fear. At the international level, this is what the United Nations was established to help to provide. This is also the duty of all governments to provide to their citizens and those with the abilities to provide to those in need. Do you have a good life? Did you have a good breakfast? Some of you had a longer walk, a good walk, than others to get to the building. Well done. You passed the exam to get here. The second way to view ethics is prescriptive ethics, is to tell others what's ethically good or bad, or what principles are most important in making such decisions. It may also be to say that something or someone has rights and others have duties to them. So we have the laws, we have normative laws. We're going to have a paper later in the conference on medical marijuana. Marijuana. Is marijuana a drug? Yes. Is it legal? It depends where you are. Since it was legalized in California, you can smell it everywhere. You cannot go to the beach without smelling marijuana. There are shops everywhere selling it. So it's legal, and then Think about the reduction in crimes of people who were sent to prison for using a drug which is now legal. It's strange. Many families were ruined by this. So prescriptive ethics has to think about this. What ethics are accepted in our culture. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and International Covenant on Economic and Social Rights says all peoples have a right to self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social and cultural development. So if we really have self-determination, shouldn't we determine what we want to do? What aspects of our life should be governed by somebody else? Okay. For example, if we want to wear shoes or not wear shoes, it's our choice. If we want to wear clothes or not wear clothes, is it our choice? Everyone is wearing clothes. Later it may get so hot, and they think, okay. But our social customs may be also changing this now. So human rights is a common language. The international standards for bioethics are both descriptive and prescriptive. The UNESCO General Conference in 1997 declared the Universal Declaration on the Human Genome and Human Rights. In 2005, the Universal Declaration on Bioethics and Human Rights. We're still discussing issues such as, should we do germline gene editing? In Bangkok, we had a conference in January, the statement, called the Bangkok Statement on Human Genetic Engineering and Gene Editing. That was interesting. I was last week in Washington, D.C. at the National Academy of Science with the commission asking them please take note that because some of the politically correct view in some countries is there should be a moratorium on gene editing. But for much of the world, it should be case by case. And why should we listen to the people who are sitting in the White House to determine our bioethics? Maybe we want to have a different bioethic or a different ethic. Many people do. Okay? So this is interesting when we talk about international governance. So actually in the Universal Declaration of Bioethics and Human Rights, a set of 15 principles were there. Human dignity and human rights, benefit and harm, autonomy and individual responsibility, consent, persons without the capacity to consent, respect for human vulnerability and personal integrity, privacy and confidentiality, equality, justice and equity, non-discrimination and non-stigmatization, respect for cultural diversity and pluralism. So I want to talk about legacies of love, peace and hope, how bioethics education can overcome hatred and divide. Confucius said, to love a thing means wanting it to live. So love is a starting point for a common philosophy. Welcome to the roundtable, Cross-Cultural Bioethics to Repair a Broken World, the first joint AUSN Tohoku University Bioethics Roundtable. And as Professor Tsushia Sai has introduced, we hope to continue these traditions that's occurred before. We had 9 Tsukuba Bioethics Roundtables, and that's where Atsushi Sai and I first met in Tsukuba. And then we had 5 Bangkok Bioethics Roundtables and 12 Kumamoto Bioethics Roundtables since 2002, organized with the Bioethics Institute. So we're very pleased to be in Sendai. Bioethics, new technology, has been a catalyst for re-examination of medical ethics and social ethics and for international dialogue on ethical principles. We have fields such as medical ethics, dental ethics, environmental ethics, public health ethics, applied ethics, ethics of biotechnology. And we're so pleased we've got lots of people back. So, welcome. So, we've just started, which is good. So the theme of today is our world broken? So the theme was decided in light of the Christchurch terror attack on the 15th of March 2019. So when Atsushi Asai and I were talking about the title for the first Sendai Bioethics Roundtable, we thought cross-cultural bioethics in a broken world would be very fitting because of this concern. So what is science of a broken world? There are many aspects. Violence, terrorism, corruption, environmental destruction, starvation, poverty. Many topics have been addressed by the Millennium Development Goals, MDGs, and the from 2000 to the year 2015, and then from 2016 to 2030 we have the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and then from 2031 we'll have yet another set of goals, no doubt, because the world continues to try to get together to deal with these issues. You may be interested, if you wish to contribute your paper to a volume. This is the website of the Legacies of Love, Peace and Hope, how education can overcome hatred and divide. So it says on the website, we're all shocked and heartbroken by the terrorist attacks against worshippers in mosques in our hometown, Christchurch, New Zealand. It's a hometown of Eubios Ethics Institute. We invite contributions for a new book with Legacies of Love, Peace and Hope, how education can overcome hatred and divide. The number of contributors will equal the death toll of the hateful, senseless massacre that occurred on 15th of March 2019. This is an counter to the decades of work for intercultural dialogue all around the world and reflection on a good life to all, the very reasons we were founded to achieve. And if you're interested to come to the launch conference in Christchurch, we held from 25th to 29th of September this year. And you can find some more videos and other projects on that website. So if you're interested to contribute your paper from this meeting or others, I need it by the end of August. The current list, just to give you, is quite a variety. Legacies of Love from Christchurch, I explore my growing up in my hometown, in Aotearoa, Christchurch. Farida Ahmed is actually writing a book based on the massacre. The title of the book is Why I Forgave the person who killed my wife. His wife was killed in the hospital. Anwar Nasim from Pakistan, the role for individuals. He is the former second president of the Pakistan Academy of Sciences. Manyao is on Skype now. Cave Doug, Lies, Hints and Prevention. Naksu is from Australia. Pakistani, Christchurch Massacre, Watershed Lost. Alay Kasai, Jordan, Communication in the Face of Terrorism. Lara from Spain, Education Against Hate and Racism for African Americans. So quite a variety. Ravichandra Muti from Malaysia, Value-Based Education. Alex Waller from Thailand and the UK, who especially developed a secondary school project in response to the Christchurch Massacre. The children from the school sent letters and discussed. Regular Waldron on ability expectation. Because people with different abilities are subject to discrimination in different ways. Rogilu, Bayard, in the sky, democratic and moral deficit of the Philippine education system. Isa from Jordan, higher education can overcome hatred from Jordan, divide. Lana from Iraq, the lost generation about the ethics of failure to educate refugees. Ayub from Jordan, nurturing the ethics of love and peace. Irina from Australia, love of nature, dialogue building. Leonard, the ethics of the US invasion of Iraq during World War II. Kitan from India, volunteerism, with the Istanbul communique, which was from the Istanbul meeting we held on April this year. We had a communique on facing disasters, looking beyond disasters, both man-made and human. John Lamouf, News to Global Peace and Harmony. Sultan Sharif, who lived in Libya and India. Forgiveness is the extreme form of love and hate. Then we have letters from the students in St. Stephen's School in Thailand, and a video specially produced from students in Cambridge High School in Jordan, which you can watch on YouTube. Conference of the Birds. They produced it as part of their International Baccalaureate graduation project as a drama. Another theme we're talking about is cross-cultural bioethics. Human beings need to love and respect all others and respect different cultures. In the Eubios Declaration on International Bioethics, which some of the people in this meeting may remember from Bioethics Roundtable in Cuba, bioethics is an interdisciplinary field that needs to be nourished by debate among all disciplines and people, not limited to any academic specialty or professionals. And further on in that declaration, what is cross-cultural bioethics? So Article 8, international cross-cultural bioethics should be developed, including studies and discussions which respect individual cultures as long as they do not conflict with fundamental human rights, as outlined in the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. Nations and members of every society should be honestly reflect on the bioethical lessons of the past. Honest reflection on bioethical lessons of the past should be encouraged together with efforts to promote reconciliation on all front levels. 9. Research on the thinking and reasoning of all people should be more emphasized in order to understand the diversity of people's thinking. This is necessary for determining the degree of universality that is possible and should be used to complement other research approaches in bioethics. There is no inherent reason to believe a priori that the views of one person are intrinsically more valuable than the views of another, based on gender, age, educational background, physical, mental, or psychological conditions or life experience. And 10. Such ethical understanding is necessary to develop international cross-cultural bioethics, and no one culture should claim to be the dominant source of the concept of bioethics. So in that spirit, developed through conferences, in fact the first roundtable was 1992. Since then, for 27 years we've had roundtables. So long time, I'm getting younger every year. So bioethics is the love of life, loving good, self-love, love of others. Love is a relational-based bioethics. We're trying to balance ideals of doing good or beneficence against not doing harm, non-maleficence, individual autonomy, or justice for all. There is a long heritage seen in biology, medicine, society, and religion. How do we bring all these peoples together? started in local communities but extended in colonization and global wars. So we can still ask these questions, what future do we want? In fact, the kids in this photograph are now in their 20s, and maybe it'd be interesting to ask them, how do they think? Was their vision the same now as it was a few years before? Can you think back 27 years? No, because some of you are younger than that. But if you could, some of us are, can we imagine what it was like? What was our vision of the future?
We were known to him for the past 30 years.
That's right. So I know, and I
He used to come to Chennai for the past 27 years.
Since 1992, is my first visit to Chennai, and the first Bioethics Roundtable in Scribble was 1992. And we actually have some videos from that time, so I can actually attest to people saying the same things as they were. They repeat the same slides, the same comments. You can see. So, for those who are new to bioethics, or some of you have first time to come to a bioethics conference, there are different ways to view bioethics. One, descriptive bioethics is the way people view life, their moral interactions and responsibilities with living organisms in their life. So I can describe the bioethics. The pursuit of a good life is a goal that all persons can hope for. A good life should be understood in a holistic sense and is clearly more than just a contented life, free of want and fear. At the international level, this is what the United Nations was established to help to provide. This is also the duty of all governments to provide to their citizens and those with the abilities to provide to those in need. Do you have a good life? Did you have a good breakfast? Some of you had a longer walk, a good walk, than others to get to the building. Well done. You passed the exam to get here. The second way to view ethics is prescriptive ethics, is to tell others what's ethically good or bad, or what principles are most important in making such decisions. It may also be to say that something or someone has rights and others have duties to them. So we have the laws, we have normative laws. We're going to have a paper later in the conference on medical marijuana. Marijuana. Is marijuana a drug? Yes. Is it legal? It depends where you are. Since it was legalized in California, you can smell it everywhere. You cannot go to the beach without smelling marijuana. There are shops everywhere selling it. So it's illegal, and then think about the reduction in crimes of people who are sent to prison for using a drug which is now legal. It's strange. Many families were ruined by this. So prescriptive ethics has to think about this. What ethics are accepted in our culture. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and International Covenant on Economic and Social Rights says all peoples have a right to self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social and cultural development. So if we really have self-determination, shouldn't we determine what we want to do? What aspects of our life should be governed by somebody else? Okay. For example, if we want to wear shoes or not wear shoes, it's our choice. If we want to wear clothes or not wear clothes, is it our choice? Everyone is wearing clothes. Later it may get so hot, you may think, okay. But our social customs may be also changing this now. So human rights is a common language the international standards for bioethics are both descriptive and prescriptive. The UNESCO General Conference in 1997 declared the Universal Declaration on the Human Genome and Human Rights. In 2005, the Universal Declaration on Bioethics and Human Rights. We're still discussing issues such as, should we do germline gene editing? In Bangkok, we had a conference in January, the statement, called the Bangkok Statement on Human Genetic Engineering and Gene Editing. That was interesting. I was last week in Washington, D.C. at the National Academy of Science with the commission asking them please take note that because some of the politically correct view in some countries is there should be a moratorium on gene editing. That for much of the world should be case by case, and why should we listen to the people who are sitting in the White House to determine our bioethics? Maybe we want to have a different bioethic or a different ethic. Many people do. Okay? So this is interesting when we talk about international governance. So actually in the Universal Declaration of Bioethics and Human Rights, a set of 15 principles were there. Human dignity and human rights, benefit and harm, autonomy and individual responsibility, consent, persons without the capacity to consent, respect for human vulnerability and personal integrity, privacy and confidentiality, equality, justice and equity, non-discrimination and non-stigmatization, respect for cultural diversity and pluralism, solidarity and cooperation, social responsibility and health, sharing of benefits, protecting future generations, protection of the environment, biosphere and biodiversity. So all countries in the world we agree to these principles. Whether you be North Korea, or United States, or Venezuela, or Thailand, or Myanmar, or India, China, you agree to this set. That how do you implement the principles into your legal frameworks? It varies. Some countries have given more freedom to individuals for self-determination, and others have tried to restrict individual freedom. And so, do we have a broken world because we have too many laws, or too little laws, or basic laws are not followed that you should respect and love other people? So it may not be a lack of laws that causes our broken world. It may be the wrong sort of education or wrong sort of emphasis. So the third way to view ethics in the spirit of roundtables is interactive bioethics, discussion and debate between people, groups within society, and communities. Such dialogue skills are necessary to live harmoniously with others. So dialogue of ethics is prehistoric. There are many sources of wisdom. And in the Pacific, in Aotearoa, New Zealand, where I grew up, we have a tradition of meeting houses of maraes. In many countries in the world we have this, community circles and meetings, deciding by consensus. So my goals include Eubios, which means a good life for all creatures. Eubios Ethics Institute is a non-profit group which aims to stimulate the international discussion of ethical issues and how we may use technology in ways consistent with good life. It aims at integrated and cross-cultural approach to bioethics and has a global network of partners. I founded in Christchurch in New Zealand and Tsukuba Science City in Japan. In 2005, we added in Bangkok, in Thailand. So we cooperate with many individuals and groups, including UNESCO, Asian Bioethics Association, youth networks, and seeks to empower people to be free thinkers, to change the world, motivating youth to be leaders, and honing the skills of professionals. We welcome you to join us. So all around the world, people make moral decisions using a range of ideas which are not as diverse from each other as the different etiquettes may deny for pursuit of a good life. And we have presenters from different countries here who will think about bioethics and a good life. In terms of bioethics education, It's like a life plan. The project is to increase the amount of free online teaching materials for bioethics education in different countries and to self-determination. We have had one, the production of cross-cultural materials, improvement by expert meetings, adapted and translated in different languages to teach school and university classes about bioethics. So we have bioethics materials in many languages now. We have 2 networks of teachers in different countries have tried the materials and created bioethics curricula for the local school, bioethics club, and endeavors. Development of the statements, the Eubios Declaration of Bioethics, and the joint plan of action with UNESCO, 2006. Testing of evaluation methods, sharing of museum displays, teacher training strategies, moral games, participatory methods, teacher training workshops and government support, curriculum development and review, and then launch of dedicated degree programs and university. So in 2002, when we had the Eubios Declaration on International Bioethics, what is bioethics education? Article 25. To work towards a social consensus requires participation of informed citizens, which requires education about issues of bioethical importance. We applaud the public discussion on bioethics that has started to emerge in a number of countries, but these efforts need further support. And 26, in order to achieve the above goals, greater effort is required to educate all members of society about the scientific and political background and ethical principles and social and legal problems involved in the life of medical sciences. This will enable the active collaboration of all individual members of society, many academic disciplines and international community. And the goals of bioethics education were further articulated in 2006 in the Joint Plan of Action. So we thought of a number of goals of bioethics education. That's one of our themes of the meeting. So one is knowledge. What sort of knowledge do you have? So developing transdisciplinary content knowledge. So you know zoology, philosophy, anthropology, intercultural communication, environmental effects. You may know pediatrics. You may know neurology. You may know traditional dance. These are all different disciplines of bioethics. Understanding advanced biological concepts, being able to integrate the use of scientific knowledge, facts and ethical principles in argumentation and discussing cases involving moral dilemmas. Understanding the breadth of questions that are posed by advanced science and technology, understanding cultural diversity and values. So these are knowledge goals. The second set are skills. Do you have skills? You can drive a car. You can read a map. You can find a plane. You can get on a train. Good? Good. You can come to the meeting and present the PowerPoint. But what do we need for real bioethics? Well, maybe we need to balance the benefits and risks of science and technology. Benefits for who? Risks for who? Being able to undertake a risk-benefit analysis. So I can decide, okay, I'm wearing a tanned leather belt. Interesting issue. From Tamil Nadu in India. The pollution from the tanning industry and from the leather industry still going on. The same in many countries. But we want to choose these materials. You want to have pretty saris using different designs, different coloring, different dyes. You want to have the latest laptop. Let's find out some rare earths and use slave labor in Africa, in China, or whatever country will produce the material for our IT revolution. So that's why we need a risk-benefit analysis. So perhaps that's why we have some people who don't have email when traveling or telephone when traveling, because they're actually trying to protect the poor workers in Africa and sacrifice. Or maybe that's just a way of being a philosopher, or maybe it's just a life choice. So there are several people in this room who got to this room from different parts of the world who do not have a smartphone. See? So there are friends who don't have a smartphone. They are philosophers and they're giving presentations that they got here. Developing critical thinking and decision-making skills and reflective processes. Developing creative thinking skills. Developing a foresight, ability to evade possible risks of science and technology. If only we knew better, we may not create the mess that we have in the world. Do you know that my first time on board a United States Air Force plane was when I was about 5 years old in 1967, 1968 in Christchurch in the US Navy Air Force Base in Christchurch International Airport. And that plane and the scientists I met were measuring the ozone depletion in 1967. And remarkably, the world agreed in 1997 to the Montreal Protocol. It only took 30 years. That climate change is seemingly going to take decades to reverse. That we need to evade risks, and people gathered knowledge, and people didn't know 100 years ago that you create refrigerants, you're going to destroy the ozone layer. Okay, that's fair enough. But once we know, we have a responsibility to act. Developing skills for informed choice, because we have a choice to make using information. Developing required skills to detect bias in scientific method, interpretation, and presentation of research results. Do we trust what you're listening to in my lecture? Really? Am I telling the truth? You think so? How do you know? We all have our bias. All the books in this room, are they all telling the truth? Yes, of course. But they may be looking at different parts of truth, different perspectives. Do you believe that politicians? This is a universal truth, don't trust a politician. Yes? Is that right? This is a universal truth. There must be some truth for politicians, because they start off on good ethics. They want to make the world a better place, and there must be some truth. So we need the skill to find who's telling the truth and which part of the story is the truth, because there's a little bit of truth in everybody. And this is a skill. So whatever we may be, whether we be right wing, left wing, south or north, eastern or western, old or young, male or female, we all have different biases. And it's very interesting in bioethics to try and look at this picture. Another set of goals is personal moral development. And that's very relevant to the theme of broken bioethics, because something's wrong with our education system when somebody goes to a church or a mosque or a synagogue or a temple and kills people. It's a fault of us, of our society, that our education system allows broken people in a broken world. So we have to understand the diversity of views of different people, increase respect for all forms of life, elicit a sense of moral obligation and values, including honesty and responsibility. Take different viewpoints on issues including biocentric and ecocentric worldviews, rather than only anthropocentric perspectives. Increase respect for different people and cultures and their values. Develop scientific attitudes, reflective processes, and an ability for holistic appraisal, while not ignoring the value for reductionist analysis. Okay, so if you're doing genetic analysis, we have some papers on genetics, we want to know the exact DNA sequence. It's very important. However, we also want to know that the many genes do not have 100% penetrance in terms of their effect on our behavior. I might be crazy because of a genetic mutation, that somebody else may have the same genetic mutation and not be crazy. So this is a holistic picture. The environment, epigenetics affects us. How do we explore our own values and clarify? Okay, so for example, when I went to Cambridge, England as a student, I was determined that I was a vegetarian pacifist and wars were always wrong. But after a few months living in England and learning more about Europe and learning about the history of the wars and what had happened, I changed from being a determined pacifist to maybe a case-by-case consideration, and I started to think, well, actually, what food we should eat, it depends, case by case as well. So values clarification goes on through our life. So finally, the foundations of the American Universal Sovereign Nations in 2013. It's in Arizona, and it's always been on sovereign land. We moved to San Carlos Apache Nation, and this is a picture actually with this Ainu gentleman, Ro Takahashi, and Chief Wenko Nozi, who's Apache, and people from other tribes around the world talking about bioethics and peace. And this is a war memorial. If you wish to come, please come. It's a war memorial to a concentration camp that was held in San Carlos, Arizona, in 1870. About 40,000 Apaches were starved to death and killed, and then they built the world's tallest dam, the Coolidge Dam, opened by Calvin Coolidge. It was the tallest concrete dam in the world in 1927 to cover the remains of the concentration camp. So it's a very interesting place. Not many people have been there. It's 2 hours east of Phoenix. Professor Chuditev has been there, and so has Tom been there. And so some of you have been there. Ro has been there. Some photos. So this was all around the world we had colonization. Trying to create a new university where our faculty from every continent, most of the full-time faculty at universities around the world, and some of you are gathered here. You're giving your time for free through lectures and meetings, travel to come to share bioethics, talk about bioethics and make bioethics a better, use it to make a better world. We have graduate programs, masters and doctoral program. We have 100 alumni, about 100 students currently. It's the largest master's and PhD program by ethics in the world, and it was created through the work of bringing together. And the goal is to have this university in every country in the world operating. So as we have more and more people trained, they can operate. So this is the goal. This is a curriculum. So bioethics education, the courses on bioethics is important. We have MOUs with over 30 institutions around the world. Education for all, sharing wisdom from all traditions, establishing a decolonized university in every country with no students in debt and global mobility. This is our goal, because also many students in some countries are in debt. In the United States, the largest single item of debt is student debt. It's more than mortgages from houses. Usually, in most countries, mortgage from a house is the largest debt, or maybe industrial development debt. But it's quite remarkable how education became a business. And the students from many countries here about a quarter of our students are indigenous. Some already have a PhD or MD degree. About bioethics education networks, the Asian Bioethics Association, we are having our 20th Asian Bioethics Association meeting this year in Dhaka, Bangladesh, in November. And it's also on a related theme. And I should note that Francis Shiozai is a former vice president of the Asian Bioethics Association for Japan some years ago. He was the second or third vice president for Japan. And then we have had Aruna, is the vice president of the Asian Bioethics Association for India. With Asia Pacific Biomedical Ethics, Education Consortium, Bioethics Teaching Network in Japan, International Bioethics Education Network, Youth Peace Ambassadors, different networks working on education. So my goal of bioethical maturity, how do we form a mature society full of well-informed and balanced persons? Bioethically mature means a person or society that can balance the benefits and risks of alternative options and make well-considered decisions and talk about it. So a mature society can talk about any topic. We can talk about eugenics, about discrimination, whether or not we should abort babies, whether we should kill old people, whether we should have different rules for man and woman, or for different people, different races. And these are topics in bioethics to discuss and come to a rational conclusion. So every topic, and in our conference we will talk about some topics like this. So you can find many resources, thousands of videos and papers on Facebook, YouTube and websites. So I'd like to open for any questions or comments that you have. Thank you for your patience. Any questions? Or comments? Yes, please stand up when you talk. Small room, and I'm taking the video.
Yeah. About cannabis, to mention California situation, in which we were referring to California, but since in California the World Organization, you can smell cannabis everywhere, not just in California. And the thing is that it's not only about ethics, it's also about science. And it reveals the fundamental issue that science is basically about ethics and metaphysics. And if scientists fail to grasp that, in a sense in which it seems as if philosophy is more difficult for scientists than science is difficult for philosophers, following what you said before, then the whole science, philosophy, ethics is intertwined, and presenting them separately might sometimes distract scientists from the true effort to understand basic conceptual issues surrounding science, surrounding values in science, because science couldn't be amoral, couldn't be technical. And cannabis is an example of which I will speak.
Thank you. Can I ask, also we have a legalization of alcohol. It's also been an interesting issue because in some countries we still have alcohol is not legal, and should we legalize tobacco? Should we legalize bioethics? Philosophical discourse, political discourse is also not legal in some countries. Right?
In some places you cannot go barefoot.
Yeah.
So in Israel, for example, they wouldn't let you in the train stations. In Japan, it's okay. So I think the most interesting thing in bioethics is that once you go inside, it helps you see how many arbitraries we have in our social ethics in different fields. Could be science, could be turned religion, could be turned custom, and still it would be arbitrary or semi-arbitrary decisions of values. And because one interesting thing following your alcohol example, it was not justified scientifically. Cannabis was first not justified scientifically, but then the scientific establishment stepped in and it became a semi-scientific argument in which scientists have lots to say about.
Interesting. Thank you, Daniel. Aruna?
Yeah, I used to think in 1992 when Dr. Darryl came to Chennai, and he used to come to Loyola College and then to University of Madras. Only then I came to know that bioethics is environmental ethics, legal ethics, medical ethics. So everything was together, and there were so many people who used to come and talk, and we were also people who were actually we did political philosophy and political management. That is the reason why we know philosophy, we know management or administration, and that is the reason why we used to like him, because he used to say, love of all life. I used to wonder, it is only in our country there are rishis, there are so many who worship God, those who do Bible, they read Bible, those who read Quran, and those who read Hinduism and some papers in Hinduism. They used to worship and they used to say love for all life. When he said in 1992 love for all life, I used to wonder. I started respecting him. Only then, 1992, I started respecting him.
Only then?
Yeah, only then.
You only met me in 1992.
I met him in 1992. And when he said that, then I knew environmental ethics, medical ethics, legal ethics, and there are so many other subjects, and people who are very good in their subjects, they all come and give lectures and they present papers. Even a dentist, even an artist, even a medical scientist, not just a doctor, but a medical scientist and a legal ethical scientist and philosophers, they all used to come and talk. Then I used to wonder, how is it that he is giving such a big philosophy, such a big condition and paper where he is talking about environmental ethics and medical ethics and legal ethics, and that is bioethics.
Yeah, right.
That is the reason why we respect him even today. That is the reason why we are all coming from India. There were at least 10 people who wanted to come, but only 2 have come. Otherwise they all would have come. In Madras University and in some colleges, they all would have come. They all have presented papers to come and talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, please ask some difficult questions, not just compliments. Thank you. Any comments? Other comments?
Yes.
Yes?
We have been talking about philosophy. How would you determine those who have been developed philosophy itself and bioethics, those who are doing philosophy with bioethics? Because philosophy must be started at the foundation of the understanding of the very important issue of life. But now we are talking about bioethics, emphasis on the philosophy. Nowadays, there will be a department of philosophy, the philosopher. How would you describe the difference between Darryl Mesa, the philosopher, and other philosophers? This is the question.
Okay, so I guess it comes to, we can ask, what is philosophy? So if philosophy is discussion about ideas, then that's the same as bioethics. If philosophy is applied philosophy to think about how we can reason about the medical ethics or engineering ethics, that's easy, that's philosophy. Political philosophy also is bioethics, so what's social justice? So there's not... Philosophy includes those things, and in bioethical decision making, we also have got that when we come to the value of nature, the value of what is life, the value of religion, religious questions also come in. So there may, I think, if we draw a diagram, a Venn diagram, a circle, I think almost all the philosophy is inside the circle of bioethics. For me, bioethics is everything. So philosophy is most of this, but there are some aspects of philosophy, like the philosophy of mathematical numbers, of real and imaginary numbers, which I think maybe not so much in bioethics. Some of that philosophy, I think.
So brief question is, did Socrates have love of life?
Certainly he discovered that he had a love of discourse and dialogue, but as an obvious consequence, yes, we have this. Yeah. And the Socratic method is used, and then even the principle, should I drink a poison to end my life, as Socrates is meant to have done, is like an end-of-life question. But in this case, a political statement, political prisoner, should I stand up for the values that I am? I'm not going to swear allegiance to something false. And that, I guess, that veracity is an ethical principle. So that, yeah. So love of life can include this, but it's balancing. So, for example, if you are a mosquito carrying dengue to my dear baby daughter, I'm going to swat you dead. Okay? I'm going to use insecticide because I'm going to make a choice that the value of the human being may be more important. So sometimes, we will see that if we're causing harm, like a serious public disease, we will quarantine or even kill. Chutita, you're going to say she's a philosopher?
Ethics is a subject of philosophy. So philosophy is included in every aspect of life. And this new bioethics is very up to date for the present time, because never in our life, in the history of mankind, that we developed so far in science, and that we have to discuss about how far should we go, how long, and how far should we stop. So I think it's essential.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Yes, Raphael, please.
How is it possible to train people, to teach people to understand the personhood, the humanhood of animals? Give an example. In Italy now there's a huge amount of people that thinks that gypsies are not persons, that the Arabs, that black people are non-persons, the dehumanization of the other. I don't perceive the other one as a person. I perceive it as an animal, as an object. So he has no right. He has no right because I don't think he's a human being. This is the first stage. The second stage, of course, is to guarantee equal rights for all people. But the first stage is to recognize the personhood of other people. Racism, in my opinion, in Western world, is grounded on the idea that I am a man and you are not a human being. You are a tool, you are a thing, you are an animal. You are less than an animal. It is very, very dangerous to follow this path. It is very important to do something about this. To make you perceive me as a human being, when you perceive me as a man or a woman.
Yeah, I think what you say is so true, and that's part of the brokenness of our world, that we have broken what is a human being, the definition. And in fact, we may show some pictures. A couple of days ago, Rohit Takahashi took me to the mass graves in Hokkaido of the chain gangs. And the hundreds of people were just buried, and the mounds are still there. And it's quite dramatic to go to the side and see the mounds of the human remains still there. And these are chain gangs to open up the country, ready for the colonization. So they used the prison labor in chains, where chain gangs can share chains, put chains in very tough winters. And this was used to build the infrastructure so then the colonialists from the main island could come to establish to the roads. Nowadays, when we go to a new suburban housing complex or a new city, usually the people are not slave labor. But slave labor is the history. The Egyptian pyramids probably were slaves, yet we still go and visit them. Does somebody else? Yes?
To answer your question, I think that still take away all the, racism and all this. We have to start from a very young age. Bring the children together in different colors and have a discussion together, like what they are having right now in this kind of room. So we get to know each other and love one another. But when you start at a young age, it's the most important thing for the children to have no undermine of any color. And right now in Europe, they start the so-called philosophical practice. The youngsters get together, 5 years old, 6 years old, and discuss some subject together. And then they learn about life, they learn about themselves and others.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, please.
Yeah, the United Nations is bringing up conventions on ethics, and that's the need of the hour. So I have a question. How far, are these conventions or protocols being successful to achieve their aim or goal?
Thank you. A very relevant question. Yes, I worked in the UN for 10 years, and I worked on committees for a long time. There are hundreds of declarations and conventions from the UN. So each one of them makes a paper as big as several hours, days, and then you spend years with a group of 50 people. All the governments then come and review it. At the end they have a paper. Hooray, we have a paper, and this will make us a better world, fix the broken world. Some of the conventions, I think, have made an impact on people and on national laws. And some countries observe the laws, and I think overall it's been better. But it's also, sometimes a piece of paper can be damaging. So for example, in some countries we make lots of laws on bioethics topics, and in other countries we don't. In Japan, not many laws on, for example, assisted reproductive technology does not have a particular law. There are specific laws on human cloning, okay? But administrative guidelines are used, or society guidelines, but maybe it's better without a law. That you have other countries where they have very particular laws to restrict your self-determination at every aspect. But if we really respect self-determination, we have to think of John Stuart Mill's liberty. The only reason I can restrict your liberty is if you're going to harm somebody else. If you're not going to harm somebody else, why should I restrict what you do? There's no justification for it. If you want to wear shoes or not wear shoes, it's your choice, totally. Yeah? It's interesting. Crash helmet question. Universities in Arizona. In Arizona, it's your choice to wear a crash helmet or not on a motorbike. Your choice. it's a really a public health argument, the science argument. It's very clear. You should pressure.
Actually, I looked into it, I published papers about it,
Yes.
and I revoked the law that mandated bike helmet law in Israel.
Bicycle.
Bicycle, yes. I'm not talking about motorbike. Bicycle helmet. I looked into the science. There was no science. I will not go into it now.
Yeah.
But the thing that was the first the first time I looked into what was supposed to be science and realized it was fake science or pseudoscience or inaccurate science, anything but good argument from the scientific point of view. And it was surrounded by argument from authority rather than solid logical data.
Interesting. And then, in other countries, so for example, in many countries we ride in the back of a pickup truck. We do this in many countries, and certainly do on Native American reservations. We do this in New Zealand. We do this in Asia. We do this all around. But in some countries, it's against the law to actually ride in the back of a pickup truck. But this is a very practical means of moving people, and maybe safer than, walking on the side of a road next to heavy traffic. Does anybody else have any other comments? Yes, Aruna, last comment.
Madam
Should've did.
School children, young children should also be taught bioethics. They should learn how to take care of birds, butterflies, insects, and human beings. What she said was really correct, and it should go to school children when they are 5 years old or when they are 3 years old, and when they become 12 years or 15 years or 18 years, they will come to know how to take care of environmental ethics or bioethics. So what Madam said was the correct.
Okay, so any other comments? Yeah. Okay, are there any other comments? Okay. Okay, so thank you. We're going to close.